Okay, right, let's get this recorded. Hello, it's February and I'm doing my next vlog for the old Tinkerbot Games channel / gaming channel / Zombev Likes Games, this thing here. Yeah, so I think for this one I'm just going to very quickly go through a few things that I've been up to this month. A bit of game design, which has been fantastic. However, I've been a little bit hampered by a big DIY project to try and make our very, very old house a little bit warmer in the winter. You can probably see with the eagle eyes, there's still a few specks of white paint on my glasses from doing the old rollering job there. So I've done a bit of that. There's been some gaming as well with the old Switch, and so tons of board games. Had 2 board game nights in one weekend. It was fantastic. So I've had a good time with that. Excusez-moi. And a bit of reading and that kind of thing as well. So let's just crack on with it, shall we? Cool. Right, so the first thing I wanted to talk about is very quickly is a book I've been reading. It's Stephen King's Fairy Tale. I'm about halfway through. I'm a bit of a slow reader. But this one is about a boy that basically he kind of comes across this old man who's fallen down and broken his leg very, very badly, and then this weird shed out the back that makes a strange noise. The old man also has an old dog, which the boy falls in love with. The dog is very, very old. And there's a bit of a story that goes around that as well. Kind of based a little bit on like the fairy tales that you might have enjoyed as kids, like Rumpelstiltskin or like Jack and the Beanstalk or the 3 Little Pigs. So yeah, well worth the read. I'm actually super intrigued. It was a bit of a slow start, but once it got going, more than happy. Game night. So I'll probably go into a bit more of this in March, but I played loads of games during the February time, as it were, during a couple of like weekend sessions. It was just amazing to just get back into loads and loads of gaming, because January was quite a dry month for me, unfortunately, with lots of like setting up this channel bits and pieces here, hoping that these batteries here don't die on this light up here very, very quickly, because they might do. Oh, it's very bright. And just sort of trying to get the resolutions thing that we did with the last thing. I'm just pointing over at the resolutions board, which obviously you can't see right now. And it's freezing cold in here, hence why I'm wearing this hat. You can probably see it's my lovely zombie hat. It's very, very cold in here. For some reason there's been a bit of a cold snap in the UK for this month. Don't know why. So, yes, gaming has been absolutely fantastic. As I said, I'll go into more of that next month, because there were some games there that I felt were really, really cool. Nice ones to revisit. It was just pleasant to get back and do some more gaming. I've done a bit of rearrangement as well to make sure that I've got my games, these sort of 6 blocks here, which I'll sort of go through on Instagram and that, talking about the games that I've got still left to play on my shelf of shame, and then a few over there that I'm just going to get rid of. So yeah, nice times with the board game, which has been fantastic. On the video gaming side, I noticed that there's a bit of a movement at the moment with like retro gaming, and for some reason certain titles, certain games are becoming more and more expensive or hard to find. So I've kind of gotten a little bit back into like retro gaming and collection and that kind of thing, and trying to pick up the older titles. So things like last year I picked up Majora's Mask for the 3DS, because I just really, it was one I never actually encountered when I was playing it, and I noticed the price of it was creeping up and up in the secondary market. So I thought I'd grab that as quickly as possible. More recently on the Switch, I picked up the 35th anniversary edition of Mario 3D. You know, the 3 Mario adventures. You've got like Mario on the 64, Mario Sunshine, and then Mario Galaxies, which I think came out on the Wii. I've played the first and the last games, 64 and not Sunshine. Sunshine's the one I've not played, and Galaxy a while ago, and absolutely loved them. So I thought I'll pick up the set. Again, it was a case of, I was just watching the prices going up and up. The cheapest ones I could find were like 50, 55, and these were second hand. So, you know, someone had already played them. I had no guarantee if the box was in any good nick. So eventually I found a lovely copy over in Ireland, of all places, that was selling for a decent price, free shipping. I thought I'd better grab it. And I've been playing through the Super Mario Sunshine first, because obviously that's the one I've not played before. It's a bit of a slog. I was really surprised. I'm currently hit a bit of a wall with it, if I'm completely honest. I'm getting older, so you know, my reactions aren't quite as fast as they used to be. But Super Mario Sunshine in particular has just got some very weird finesse quirk things about it that I don't quite like. For example, the level I'm stuck on right at the moment is one where you've got to go to this port place. You've got to bash on top of these buttons, these big stack things, to knock out some fruit. You've got to get a particular fruit, a durian, and give it to Yoshi, who's currently sat in an egg for some reason, don't know why. Give them that fruit, they hatch out, you then hop on their back, and then you've got to use the juice to squirt some bloopers, I think they're called, the jumping fish. in Mario, and you've got to squirt them. They, for some reason, then transform into a platform that you can jump on, and then you've got to transfer your way across all these bloopers and platforms up to a star that's kind of like hidden at the top of this level. The reason I'm stuck is it's requiring some very strange, like finesse jumps and things like that. If you mistime the jump with Yoshi and you fall in the water of this particular level, gone, you have to start all over again. And there's just some design things I just find really, really odd as choices. Like the whole bashing these towers to get the fruit out. You can get any random number of fruit. So you could get a banana, you could get a pear. But you want the durian fruit, he always wants this durian fruit. So you could have like 4 or 5 goes at these towers before you actually get the fruit you want. Pointless. It's pointless busy work, and I don't understand why the designers decided to include it. Maybe there was something else they wanted to do. Maybe you can change the type of juice that he's eating so that you end up with like a yellow Yoshi or something, but pointless in terms of trying to complete the level as far as I can tell. Maybe there's different fruit will do different things. I don't know, but it's really annoying. Yoshi just instantly disappearing when you fall in the water means that if you miss any of your jumps, you've had it. You've got to restart this whole level again. It creates this sort of this bad feeling, I suppose, that I'm just constantly trying to repeat myself, which is just really annoying. Anyway, doesn't matter, I'll persevere and get on with it. I'm looking forward to getting back to Sunshine, the other two, 64 and Galaxy, because those two were my absolute jam back in the day when we had a Nintendo 64 and we had a Wii, which is now in the loft somewhere. Never mind. Right, so on to game design. So this is the last thing I wanted to talk about. As I said, game design has been a bit thin on the ground this month, mostly because we're wrapping up the Haunter Culture and Ultra Brawl production cycles, so we're having things made for both of those games at the moment. They should be finishing up this sort of halfway through March. Fingers crossed. We'll have to see how this goes when I do my next vlog, and it's completely changed. There's nothing, all of it's completely different. So we'll just have to see. But in terms of game design, I've had a fantastic time with one of my designs that I did put together sort of many, many, many years ago. And then obviously during the pandemic, things kind of changed with the way that people were playtesting, and it got moved over to Tabletop Simulator. But I am sort of skipping ahead of myself. The game used to be called Worm Farm. It was a play on the word worm, which was spelt like the dragon, W-Y-R-M. And the whole point of the game was that you had these little dragon cards, and you were breeding dragons as part of like a deck builder. And the whole breeding thing was like to not only gain more dragons, that was how you gained extra cards, but it was also so that you could gain multicolored dragons. So you could get like a red-blue dragon or a green, green dragon using primary school colours here, yellow and blue, obviously. And then they had different abilities on them and did different things. And it was a fantastic game in terms of me trying to build a deck builder, because I loved deck builders at the time. This was sort of like 7-8 years ago. And what ended up happening was I kept playtesting it and thinking, it's not really bringing anything new. Like, it felt very much like Ascension Plus, if you know what I mean. Like, it wasn't quite gripping enough for me as a player. Maybe I was falling into the classic designer trap of, I've played it so many times, I just want to add complexity because I want it more complex and more difficult. Who knows? Anyway. It then ended up in a situation where it kept getting more and more complicated, so I added in things where you could like buy event cards, you could buy building cards that then made it so that you could do things like when an egg hatches, you can refine the shell and draw extra cards during your turn. This one here, which is basically where you feed it like some brimstone, and then what it does, it will then just immediately hatch the eggs, things like that, so you could use the cards immediately. All sorts of weird upgrade cards that you could get. You could get like worm sparky crystally things that meant you could breed them more quickly or breed the specific type of dragon that you wanted, and so on and so forth. And then it just started getting silly, so I started adding things like little symbols in the corners to try and add like a costing thing. Oh, go on, get into focus. Look at the card. There we go. So I ended up like layering on systems that were trying to increase the sort of scoring and variability. I did have some nice cute eggs made for it though, which I just kind of want to show. So Gino made these for me with his 3D printer, which I thought was quite cute. Anyway, long story short, it became a really overcomplicated mess. The deck building aspect of it just sort of didn't feel right for the game that it was. And I ended up having to just either completely scrap it or move on to something completely different. I love the idea. I love this concept of like you breed a yellow dragon with a blue dragon, you get a green dragon. What's the benefit of a green dragon? It does what the yellows and blues but better, and then had abilities on top. And I just love that concept. I love that idea. So what I ended up doing was what a lot of game designers will do, which is completely redesigning the concept of, like, you know, going back to basics. And it was this game that taught me this, that sometimes you need to pivot. And the pivot is the point where you just kind of go, right, no, this isn't working. I need to push this all aside and just work on something completely different in terms of the mechanics. So, like, keep the theme, shuffle it across to something else, and just completely rethink what you want this game to do. Eric Lang very famously said that one day he just had enough of, like, his designs. For some reason he'd reached a funk point, and he just went click delete and got rid of all of, like, a load of old designs, or designs that he was kind of half working on, or design ideas that he wasn't really getting to. And I just thought, maybe that's what I need, a complete fresh start. So I took the deck builder, you can see the leftovers of it are still here, but then instead what I did was I wrote up a quick document, a kind of like, what do I want this game to do? And then it became like the aim of the game, what I want it to do, what I want it to achieve, and what kind of games do I like to play? Because obviously deck building was great for me. I love a bit of deck building when I was younger. I say younger, about 5-6 years ago, but I've kind of fallen out of love with the deck building genre a little bit. So what I wanted to take the dragon breeding, the dragon farming, the dragon ranching section of it, and just move it into a more me aesthetic, as it were. So in the end, what I ended up doing was pivoting completely away from deck building into like a worker placement style game. So instead now what you've got is you hire workers to do work for you. So you'll do things like build, not pens is the wrong word, because obviously I'll go into the history of that a little bit more in another video, but essentially what I wanted to do was not a generic, these are dragons and you have to sort of, you know, cattle like them and breed, you know, force breed them and all that sort of thing. I wanted it to be more gentle, I wanted it to be more, the dragons are running out, you know, becoming extinct, it's up to you to help save them and bring them back. Hence the new game, Dragon Ranch, which became, as I said, a worker placement. I am rambling a little bit, but I'll get to the point in a minute. And the idea was just that you worked for a charity. Each of the players was a charity that was working to breed dragons and bring them back to, you know, from the brink of extinction, essentially. And the changes were phenomenal. We went from like having the cards in the game, they completely disappeared, and it moved more into like chits and coins and tokens and things like that. And as I said earlier in the video, we were moving away from physical playtesting because of the pandemic, and I ended up putting it on to TTS as a playtest tool. And that's worked out really well because I've been able to playtest it and playtest it and playtest it. And the reason I want to bring it up in this particular video is that earlier in the month had a breakthrough. And we got through about 50% of the game, still not a lot, we only had an hour. But the game ran, like it ran smoothly, it felt good to play, you know, we found the fun essentially. And I just want to sort of switch the camera over now to a TTS, me playing it, and just sort of run you through the big changes that were made in the game. So I'll see you in a minute, okay? I think that's me. Hi. Cool, right, so I've nipped to the laptop over here and we're going to have a little look at the actual game itself. So I think I've got it recording. Yeah, OBS is going. So the game itself has very much changed in terms of, like, as I said, the amount of stuff in it. So if we nip over to the actual screen itself, you'll see here that each player now has their own player board instead of a tableau that they're going to build during the course of the game. You've also got these lovely tiles that represent the different, not pens wasn't the right word, habitats, that's the word I'm talking about. They're habitats that hopefully encourage the dragons to breed in them. And then you've got the different types of dragon here as well. So you've obviously got your greys, which are like your base dragons. They'll breed with that practically anything. And then you've got the other types of dragons here, which do the similar situation to what we did with the card game, where if you can somehow manage to breed two blues together, you get more blues. But if you manage to breed, say, a blue dragon with a yellow dragon, you get yourself a lovely green dragon. Hooray! And then the benefit of doing so is that there are different ways to rewild these dragons. So when you breed dragons, you can then also rewild them by paying these cart costs down here to send them off to the rewilding habitat zone, safari, whatever you'd like to call it. And obviously the more difficult the dragon was to breed, the more points it's worth to the charity that you're helping out in terms of, like, you know, rewilding it. So those are the victory point conditions there as well. You can also build up your farm, which is the new thing, where rather than having to buy cards like you used to do with the old deck building version, you now use money. So you're going to be earning money from these sponsor cards, which are up the top here. Let me just flip a couple of those, and you'll see that you start off with a sponsor that will just give you X amount of gold every single turn. Brilliant. And they also give you a little one-off bonus right at the beginning of the game, so each of you has a slightly asymmetric start as well, so they give the game a little bit of variety. You then, during the course of the game, will get the opportunity to grab these extra ones here, these extra sponsors, who will then earn you extra money and have like a victory condition underneath, which if you meet at the end of the game will earn you more victory points. If you don't meet it, however, no victory points. Sad times. Yeah, and then with that money, you can then hire these workers here. So these are the builders. The builders will allow you to build more habitats. They come in different flavours as well, so I've changed the way that they work, so it's not overwhelming like it was with the old deck building one, where there was loads of different types of builder, loads of different types of worker. Now you've just got these three that have different methods for building the buildings for you. So, you know, ways you can save money by maybe using your dragons to help you out instead, that kind of thing. And then you build these habitats. The habitats go into your lovely garden here, and your ranch here, and then your ranch is then used to sort of, you know, increase the number of dragons you can build, breed a turn, that kind of thing. You then also got the breeders, who allow you to then breed more dragons, change the dragons' colours, that kind of thing. You've then got the charity over here, which is then used to you know, build up reputation, so you can sort of spend money, you know, donate money to the charity to then increase the number of these charity workers that turn up at your base, so at your on your ranch. And then the charity workers just affect how the farm operates, which is, you know, it's an extra little je ne sais quoi when you can breed 2 dragons, and then because you've bred a yellow dragon, this one particular, oh hello, let's put me back into OBS, this one particular dragon will then just say, oh, have an extra coin just because you bred a yellow dragon. Fantastic. And then finally, you've also got something here, which is my favourite bit of the game, are the quest cards. So the quests are basically where, you know, local people to the charity have turned up and said, oh, we need some help. We've got a quarry quandary, for example. And it says there in the top corner, you'll see there's a 1 pip, which means you can flip one of your dragons. So when you use dragons, they flip to an exhausted side. You can use your dragons to complete quest cards, which then increases your... It's you demonstrating to like the locals that dragons aren't bad, they're great. We want to keep the dragons around. We want them to do the jobs for us. So this one then allows you, if you complete it, to build a habitat at -1 gold. Fantastic, it makes your habitats nice and cheap. The reason I love this is that these aren't quests that everybody's got available to them all the time. You've got them in your hand, so and you've got options to sort of swap them in and out, flip them around, so it's constantly churning the requests that are available, and people can kind of tailor their play style then to match what kind of farm they'd like to build. Do they want to build one that just pumps out lots and lots of gold that lets them climb the charity tracker quickly? Fantastic, that's the one they want. Do they want to build a farm that has lots of little tweaks and things that allow them to rewild dragons very quickly? So obviously then you want to go for the more expensive dragons like greens and the purples and the oranges to try and get those rewilded as quickly as possible. Or do you want to be that guy that's building loads and loads of habitats in your farm and breeding lots of dragons, so maybe not necessarily trying to rewild as many as possible, but maybe you're just trying to complete as many quest cards as possible, because some of those have victory points on them and there may be like benefits for you doing so. All of this is to say that this was a complete change of how the game was supposed to be built. It started off as like this single currency game where you've got like, you know, dragons breeding and gold coins and stuff like that would allow you to buy stuff from the center row and then use dragons to then create more dragons, that kind of thing, to what is essentially a 2 currency system now with the dragons and the coins, into like a worker placement game that is, at the moment, is hitting that sweet spot of complexity versus accessibility. And by doing that pivot and writing that document that I mentioned earlier, I was able to create a game that felt cohesive. Like all of these elements, all of these parts feel like they make sense in this fantasy world of dragon charities and trying to breed these, you know, these gribbly fire-breathing or whatever kind of monsters. Dragons, beautiful creatures. Yeah, and it's been a bit of a journey, and as I said, it's been fantastic to try and do it this time around, to try and get this design, because one of my white whale designs, which I'll go into in another video, is trying to build a worker style placement game, which is kind of where this one is going. Yeah, that's basically what I've been up to for this month with game design itself. So yeah, again, I'm not expecting anybody to watch this. It's probably mostly for me, but you know, it gives me a chance to play around with video editing and this cool camera and all that malarkey. So next month, hopefully I'll be able to get 2 videos out. I've got a second-hand microphone turned up, so I'm hoping to try that out on this device here, see if that improves my audio quality. I'm then going to work on my lighting, because this has been a little bit bright over here. Yeah, and then maybe we'll go out into the fields and have a wander around if the lousy Smarch weather doesn't kick us off. Yeah, fantastic. Right, well anyway, lovely to speak to everybody again, speak to myself in the future, and yeah, cheers, bye.